welcome to the channel and welcome to today's video. Now, have you ever bought yarn that you had a bit of a build up for, and when it finally got to you, it's not quite what you thought it was? If you remember a video a little while ago, we got this and the yarn wasn't that great. And I don't know about you, but when I get yarn that's not quite as advertised, I'm reluctant to put it on the shelf. I'd rather not put it away because then it will sit there and it's taking up space of something that I might like better. So I was thinking, I don't want to throw it away. I don't have anyone I want to give it to because the people I know that like yarn wouldn't like this yarn. So I decided I would make something with it. And this is what I made. So I'll put up a picture now of what it looked like in the box once we'd taken the wrappers off. And I have used every single one of those balls bar the white because I needed to add a colour to put with it. And so this is my third ball of this, and this makes a baby blanket size. I'll give you the actual measurements once we get into the tutorial. And I used the whole lot, even including the earwax colour that I was going to chuck away. And I've made one of my lazy bones blankets, which is what I'm giving you the tutorial for today. Other names for this kind of pattern is called a spiral granny or a never-ending granny. I just call it lazy bones because there's no joining, there's no slip stitching. There is ends if you want to do ends, but it's pretty much a mindless thing you can do. Like if you just want to sit there and crochet and don't want to expend any brain cells, this is the pattern I use, and that's what I thought I'd show you. So what you need for this pattern is you either need a crappy advent calendar or you need your scrap bucket. Now this is not my only scrap bucket, this is the one that I could lift at the moment. And what you want to do is you want to separate your scraps into the same thickness. Doesn't have to be the same brand, just as long as they're the same thickness. And then you want to find a solid colour that matches the thickness. Now I found Stallion matched the advent calendar yarn thickness. And then you want to find a hook that is slightly bigger than you would normally use. So for Stallion, I would normally use a 4mm, but for making this blanket, I used a 4.5 because I wanted it to have better drape. What I'll do is I'll get the blanket out so you can have a look. So this is the blanket, and this size, as you can see, it's baby blanket size. It has used all of them and 2.5 100-gram balls. So I'm going to be using these ones that I've already got caked up, and I will probably put them with a light colour because they've got flecking through them. I might start with these two and put maybe a dark grey. I am not totally sure yet. I might even do the white. The white would really stand out. So if you want to get your supplies ready, we will start on the tutorial. Okay, to make this blanket, like I said earlier, you need some scraps. And what you need to do, once you've got them separated into the same thicknesses, what I did for the advent calendar one is that I tied the ends together and then I wound them into a cake on my yarn winder, or even just into a ball with your hands. So I'm going to use these ones that I did earlier for a different project. These are all offcuts of Stylecraft Special DK that I had. I made a big mosaic shawl a while ago, so that's what these are from. So these are all ready and I can use that. And then I'm also going to use the Stallion 8-ply. Now, if you're not sure how big your blanket's going to be, make sure your contrast yarn is something you can either get a lot of or have a lot of, because I was quite surprised. My little blanket ended up being 86 centimeters square. Now that's a baby blanket size, and yet I used, this is the third ball of 100 grams in 8-ply. So make sure you can get enough so that you can actually do your blanket and use all your scraps up. So let's just have a quick look. This is the very center of the blanket. And what you do, after you do the center, you're working out in a spiral, and it's a never-ending spiral. If you look at this yellow that I started with, you see here it blends into the orange and just keeps going around and around and around. And it's a perfect thing when you sit in front of the telly or talking to the cat or whatever you want to do. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm also going to be using a 4.5, and I have a couple of stitch markers here just so that you will need the stitch markers or something in the form of a stitch marker. So the first thing you want to do, I'll write it over here, is, now you can use a magic ring if that's what you like. Step 1, magic ring or chain 4, then join with a slip stitch, chain 2, then it's 2DC, chain 2. I'm going to put a bracket there. Actually, no, ignore that bracket. Put a bracket here, and then 2DC. I put a bracket there. And we want to repeat that around so we end up with 4. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 more. So it equals 4 clusters. Okay, they're granny clusters of 3 DCs. That's 2 DCs. We want 3 DCs. Honestly, I don't know what's wrong with me today. Okay, so that will give you 4 clusters, and then you join with a slip stitch. So that's row 1. Now I am going to do that row with the white. Can you see the white? I think you can. So I'm going to do a magic ring. This is how I do them. Make the X under the first, pull that up, and then twist around. Do it whatever way that works for you. It really doesn't matter. And like I said, you can do a chain 4 and join them. So we're just going 1 and 2. That's our first DC. 1 and 2. That's your first cluster done. When you can pull it through. Chain 2. Every corner is a chain 2. And that is the only chaining that you will do in this. This is our second one. One and 2. One, 2, and 3. And the last cluster. 1, 2, and 3. Now it's important that you do the chain 2 before you join. Pull the loose end, tighten it right down, and then join with a slip stitch. Now I join, so this loop doesn't end up too big, I don't join in the chain, I join in the top of the first full DC, and that way this chain here doesn't get too big. Now this is the only time that we cut, when I find my scissors. There we are. And I usually, when I go to cut, I do a chain 2 and then I cut off and pull it out, which is really only a chain 1, but it gives me a bit of security. Okay, take that out the way. Now we want to make this center as tight as we can. So we'll yank it down a bit more until we've closed it up as much as we can. And one thing I like to do is I like to do a surface knot So that's just over the top and over the top. I'll show you that so you can see. And then I just put my thumbnail on it and just pull the string tight. What that does, it just is an impediment. See the knot in the string? An impediment for the stitches to fall out until I'm ready to weave this in. So that's our first little part, and that is the only ends that you'll have to deal with once you get going. So with your main colour, you do the standing stitch or the chain 3. I've got a chain, extra chain there, right? And then you do 2 more DCs. That makes your first cluster, and then we jump to the next chain 2, like so, chain 2. So this is our standard corners. We're doing this every time. Bring it up a little bit so you can see. You see that? Yes, we can see that. Like I said, I'm going to weave over, crochet over my ends, but not the very center one. And 3, chain 2, 1, 2, and 3, and that last full corner, 1, 2, and 3, chain 2. Always got to do the chain 2 in the corners. 1, 2, and 3. So we got that, and now we're going to go here. We're going to do the last cluster, well, the last half of the last corner, and 3. So that's going to make that look like a completed cluster, and we'll join with a slip stitch like so. But then we're going to put that on a stitch marker, and then we better write down what we just did so that we have it written down. So that's what we got first, okay, and we've got our join in this corner. So we did 2, we either did a standing DC or chain 3 in chain 2 space. This is with your main color, this is with your contrast, okay, main color, contrast color, okay. So we've done that, and then we want to do 2 DCs in the same space, and then we want to skip cluster, and then this, I'm going to write this down as your first corner, because this is what all the corners will look like. We need 3 DC, 2 chains together. Ignore that bit. 3 DC. Okay, putting a lot of marks in that I shouldn't do. 3 DC, 2 chain, 3 DC, and that's all in chain 2. So what we've done so far is this one here and then that corner, but we want to repeat it twice more. So get that hair out the way, times 2. All right, so that'll get us around to here, and then you just want to do a single cluster in the first 3 DC in beginning chain 2, and then join with a slip stitch to first DC, right? And then put loop on stitch marker. How do we write stitch? We'll just go stitch marker. Sorry for my scribbles. I'm trying to write it down while I remember what I just did. Okay, so we are here. We've done this little bit here, and that little bit matches that. You see, right next to it. So now we want to start doing our spiraling. So what we do, I'm going to write 3, and we're back with the main colour. All right, I'm going to loop around that because that's to do with what colours we're using. We want to join in top of first DC. Now I'm actually going to do it and then I'll write it because otherwise it's not going to make sense. So make yourself a slip knot. So got this on a string. Actually pull that a bit longer because there's so many cords here, you may end up pulling it out. It is a little bit fiddly to get started, but we want to join into this first one here. Make that a slip stitch. 1, 2, and 3, and then we want to start doing this here. Okay. Just making sure that I'm doing this correctly. Yes, I am. And then going around like this is our next corner. So now it's starting to resemble a standard granny square. I'm working over this end because I am. 1, 2, and then the next one. Now, I know this is boring, but I've got to get these first couple of rows on so that you can see the way to start the spiral. Alright. Like this. And like this. Now don't worry, if you see that little fluff bit there, don't worry about that because what we'll do the next row, we'll fix that. That's the end that we've been working over. 1, 2, 2, and 3. So we're just working this like a normal granny square. Another corner. 1, 2, 3. Oop. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. And let's just do this one and have a look. 2 and 3. Okay, so we're back to here. Now what we want to do, we want to put a cluster in here. Right there. We want to put a cluster in right there. Like this. Well, one more for a cluster, isn't it? And then we're going to put that one on a stitch holder. So I can show you. So we've done that. Let's catch up with our words. So we joined in the top of the first DC. Then we chained 3, skipped cluster, keep doing my U's as the cluster. And then we put a cluster in chain. No, there's no in gap. We'll just put in gap because we've got no chains between our clusters. Then we want a corner, and then repeat this around. Okay, and we want to end up with one cluster just here. All right, so next bit. Basically, pick this up. Now we're going back to our contrast colour. Pick up the string, and then we put one here. Yeah, so I was going to show you how to do that. So we're going under the carry. So doing the cluster, picking up that. So that's our first 3. And then we chain 2 and then go here. We're making a corner just offset from the original corner, like so. You see that? It's just offset. It's right in the middle. I haven't yet figured out how to get it over here. If somebody else does, that's great. I just haven't been able to do it now. Next thing is to do a normal cluster, but what you want to do is to go under that little yarn that you were carrying on, because what that'll do is it'll hide it in the next cluster, because it will pull it up to the sides of the previous cluster. And do that. And if you can see that, so this corner has shifted to there. I don't know of another way to fix that. Like I said, if you do, let me know, but this is how I do it. And then the next corner, I'm not going to do the whole corner. I'm not going to do the whole row, sorry. 2 and 3. 1, 2. And this. And do the same with the white. I will show you in a minute. This just keeps going around. 3. All right, I'm going to put that on a stitch marker. Click it in. All right, so that's our first spiraling, starting with the contrast color. And like I said, when you do the next round, you pick them up. So we will go with this one. I will catch up on the words in a minute, I promise, on the written words. So now we have a corner to work this in. So we go carry on with this being a corner, and 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 3. That's that corner done. Now, like I said, go under the carry yarn and then finish the stitch normally. And what that does is it pulls it up to be hidden within the underneath of this cluster. And that way you're carrying the yarn and you're hiding your ends. And hang on, I got myself all tangled up. Try again. Under there. And that is literally all you do. Now that this is started and you've got your corners started, right now I can actually do this corner as well. I always usually stop to catch the other colour up just after a corner. That way I'm not pulling one corner out while it's waiting. 1, 2, and 3. And then we put that one on our stitch marker again. And that's that row started. And you just keep going around and around and around. So this one will come around here, and I'll probably stop it there, and then this white one will pick up and go around. And it just keeps growing, and you don't have to flip it, you don't have to turn it, nothing. That's just it. So let's just catch this up. So we are with the main colour on the second row, join the top, skip cluster, repeat all the way around. That was the white, yes, and we are stopping, stop at 1 before last contrast cluster. Okay, so we're stopping there. Place marker, place loop on marker, but you know what I mean. And then 4, this will be the contrast. And the contrast is the one that we did the first full corner in. So on, what was it, main colour, chain 3, you want to do a full corner. Do a full corner. And then you skip, you're skipping the next cluster. And then carry on as granny. All right. So this bit here is the bit that makes it into a spiral. You do half a cluster, half a corner, rest of the row, other half the corner, join them, and then pause. Join here in the first cluster, chain 3, then do the rest of this, stop here, and then put your first cluster, next one along. And that gets your spiral started, and you just carry on all the way out. So that's how you get started with this. Other thing I was going to show you is what I did for the border, because that's the next question. What do you do on the border? Now, as I said, I was using this up to use the whole advent calendar, and on my last row when I got to the black, I actually didn't have enough to finish the whole row. So what I did is I pulled it back to the last full row that I'd done. It was when it turned to the blue. So here it is. So I've got two full granny rows, and then what I did is I did the rest of the round in single crochet. So visually it's completing the round. And then I did one row of single crochet in the contrast color, the white. In the corners it's chain 2 still, but what we'll do is we dropped back to one single crochet. So one single crochet, but still chain 2. One single crochet there. So it was finishing the row, whether you do it in the, like I did, just to finish it off in the single crochets, or you do a full granny one, and then one full row of the white, and then one full row still in the white in double crochets with 2 chains in the corner. And that is all I did, and then I spent a couple of hours doing all my ends in. So I hope this tutorial isn't too confusing. This is the hardest bit. You got to get this bit right. So half corner, 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 other half a corner, join it up, and then start the white, and then put this corner into that first corner. I really hope that's clear. I'm going to hold that up so you can have a damn good look at it. And then I'm going to move that aside and bring this up so you can have a damn good look at that, my chalk scratchings. If you have any questions, please let me know. And also, if you figured out a way to get this first corner in line, I'd love to know. every other corner will be in line, just not that very first one, because it's got to be offset to get the spiral going. If you know of a way to not have that first corner offset, I'd love to know it, but this is how I've always done them, and it's a good way to use up all your scraps. So I hope you enjoy this short tutorial. It's not very long, and I will see you on the next one.